ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Badgerworks. Today, yes, it is another Fokker Eindecker. It's the E3 from Eduard, the weekend edition. But there is more. We also have the Airfix EIII Eindecker. Yes, this is going to be another twofer, and yes, it's another two Eindeckers. You may recall I built two Eindeckers before, the Airfix E2 and the Revel E3, just to compare them and see how they came out. And I'm going to do it again. So, but in this case, on the box here it says on the Airfix model design and tooling 2016, and on the date of the Eduard one I think it's 2017. So they're much more of an age. I think the Revel kit I built previously was much older tooling. I think they're going to be fairly similar. As I say, this is the weekend edition, so it's the more basic of Eduard's models. So I think they're going to be a good comparison. So let's get on with it. So here are the frames for both kits. The Airfix has two, the Eduard only has one. They both look quite nicely moulded. I think there's possibly a little bit of flashing on the Eduard. There's some mould lines in various places I can see. The Airfix generally looks cleaner. At first glance, I have to say the Airfix looks more detailed. The fuselage, for example, has a lot more detail here. It has the stitching, which the Eduard doesn't have. The Eduard actually has a decal for the stitching for the underside of the fuselage, which I'm not massively keen on, but you know, we'll see how it goes. I think the Eduard seems to have a more detailed cockpit. Yeah, so for example the flight yoke is a lot more detailed on the Eduard than it is on the Airfix. But the wings seem to be more detailed on the Airfix as well. They both have the markings for the rigging, which is nice. One thing I do notice, the Eduard has the compass actually moulded into the wing, whereas I know on the Airfix it's a decal. The engine cover on the Airfix seems to be a lot more detailed. Just trying to put those two side by side so you can see them. Yeah, it seems to be a lot more detailed. The engine seems to be more detailed on the Eduard. You can actually see like the vanes and rivets and things like that, which the Airfix doesn't have. The Airfix has more detailed undercarriage. The Eduard seems to be a lot simpler. Also the gun on the Airfix, again I'll try and line those up so you can see them. The gun on the Airfix is a lot more detailed. The funny thing is though with this Airfix is it looks identical to the E2 frames, and I think they are the same kit. I mean the main difference between the E2 and the E3 was the engine. The E3 had a bigger engine and some internal modifications, but from the outside they looked almost identical. So I think basically what they've done is they may well have used the same frames. I'm not sure, I'd have to check the part numbers, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so but both of them seem to be fairly well made. They're well moulded. I mean they should be, they're new models, so they should be fairly straightforward. But yeah, like I say, the fuselage is a lot more detailed. If you look at the Airfix, you can see, I don't know whether you'll be able to see that, but it's got like all the side panels for the engine mounts and all the rest of it, which the Eduard doesn't have. So yeah. Okay, well anyway, we'll start building them and we'll see how we get on. Before we get started, I just want to talk briefly about the instructions. Both of them actually have really nice instructions. The Eduard ones especially, a nice glossy paper. I think I prefer the Eduard. They seem to be clearer in some respects, but also they're a nice little booklet, you see. They're like A5 size. Whereas the Airfix are A4 size, so they're fairly huge. So yeah, I think I prefer the Eduard instructions. I mean, but they are both very nice, very detailed instructions. So just thought I'd mention that.
drop the load. Drop the load.
Jerusalem and New York. President Roosevelt said in a statement today that the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii from the air. I'll repeat that. President Roosevelt says that the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii from the air.
We will interrupt all programs to give you latest news bulletins. Stay tuned to this station.
Now tuned in to MCM Records.
And here are the finished planes. The Eduard is done up to look like the plane flown by Max Immelmann, apparently the first ace of World War I and inventor of the famous Immelmann turn, which is still used by fighter pilots today. And the Airfix is done up in the colours of Ernst Udet. This was an interesting build, actually. One of the strange things for me is although both planes are 1/72nd scale, the Eduard is actually bigger than the Airfix. It stands taller, it has a longer wingspan, and it's generally just slightly larger, which I find quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, they're quite interesting comparisons side by side. In some respects, the Eduard is more detailed. It has a more detailed cockpit. It has more decals. But I think overall the Airfix is the better kit of the two, I have to say. Although to be fair to Eduard, this is their weekend edition, so it is a simpler plane. But of the 4 Eindeckers I've built so far, I think I would have to say if you're looking for an Eindecker model, you're probably better off getting the Airfix. I have no affiliation with Airfix. This is just from my own experience. But yeah, this was an interesting project. I like doing these side-by-side builds. I might do some more of them. I mean, if you like them, then by all means say so in the comments, and I'll do more of them. I actually do have a few more Eindeckers stashed away, so I might do a few more. So anyway, I hope this was of interest to you. It was certainly interesting for me. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers. Bye.